is a beautiful morning here in Norway. I mean, it was very easy for me to find something to paint today. As you can see, the nice winter light, that very nice and golden glow is just everywhere. And so I found very simple shapes to try to make my life a little bit easier on how to capture the light and the feeling that I get every time I see this kind of light and how it like just falls on objects. There's a bit of frost everywhere. It's getting colder. It's quite cold today. It is -9 Celsius. And there is something very interesting that happens when it's cold like this with water mediums like watercolor. And you will find out soon enough. But that's what made today very interesting. Other than the fact that the sunlight is just so beautiful. I mean, I'm looking at the video now and just seeing it, how it hits on my notebook, and I was like, oh, that just gives me such a nice warm feeling inside. It's just amazing. So trying to learn from yesterday's mistakes, I tried to remember to bring my rag to, well, not use my pants as a drying rag. I still forgot it. I do not know why. I'm never this forgetful, but I guess the additional gear that I have to bring for the making the video, it's probably taking that space of that rag. But I guess it's not a biggie. It's just I mean, I can always use my pants and just wash them. That's the beauty about watercolor. It doesn't permanently stain anything unless the pigment does so. So now I'm gonna start a bit with the background. Just it was a grayish cool color, and I'm trying to make that work. But soon enough you're gonna see something interesting happen that I did not really think about at all, even when it's this cold. It's only happened to me once before, so just wait for that to happen. But look, I'm trying right now to establish more the shadows, or the shadow side, and now I'm adding some of the warm side of the shadow of one of those rocks, trying to make my way into the bigger shapes and not really thinking about all the detail that I see, which is a very hard thing to do. I mean, you saw me trying that yesterday in day one with the fence and the little details of the fence, the little wires. I don't know if you've noticed already, but look at the paint. It's freezing up. And now it's becoming like slushy on my paint and my palette. And as you can see, I'm struggling to actually spread any of the paint. And at this moment I thought to myself, well, maybe I should just stop and like call it a day. I mean, I did paint, right? But I was like, no, let's try to learn from this. Let's try to actually move through this. Maybe if I use more paint, maybe if I don't use that much water, then it won't freeze. I'm still trying to block in the first wash of the paint, and you can see I'm trying to just thaw the already frozen paint, and it's just getting worse and worse. I'm thinking maybe if I use all the pigments. No, I'm kidding. I just thought if I use more pigment than water, maybe I can just salvage this. And it's turning so muddy. It's turning so undefined. But usually the first washes of watercolor are like that anyway. Like usually the first wash that you do, if you do your paintings and first doing the first layer to just get kind of rid of all the white in the paper, if that's what you want to do, and just getting all the colors that you see in the scene like more dulled out, more closer to white kind of values. This is basically what you do. You just put everything on first layer, and it doesn't look like anything most of the time. It just looks like a complete mess. And since I'm used to that, I thought that this could still be saved and it was all gonna be fine if I just don't use that much water. But you'll see what happens. I was actually surprised that the water that I had didn't freeze, but I guess it's just always moving, and I'm always moving it with when I'm rinsing out the brush. But yeah, like the surface of the paper is just almost frozen, and the paint in the palette is also frozen. So I'm kind of like trying to decide what to do next. I'm like, okay, let's go for the mid-tone, so like a thicker kind of layer for the rocks and the light. And I just really couldn't mix color, and the paint was lasting so little. Like, I'm used to being able to just put paint almost infinitely, but it's never the case. I mean, I do have to reload my brush, but this felt like I was using very little acrylic paint on the brush and then trying to spread it everywhere like butter or something. It was an experience and a half, that's for sure. I'm trying to work on the very dull grass that I saw, using my trusty nails to create the illusion of highlights of the frost on the blades of grass. And it kind of worked, but also didn't. I'm still surprised that I kept fighting through this. I know I was thinking nothing's really gonna come out of this. But I wanted to show you guys that it is possible to paint in this kind of weather. It just needs more preparation. I know that there's artists out there like James Gurney and Jared Callum who have painted outside in freezing weather, and both of them use different kinds of substances to make the water not freeze. For example, alcohol or something else that I can't remember right now. But yeah, I mean, there's some substances that you can use on your watercolors or the water for your watercolors to make it not freeze. Of course, I didn't think about this, and I also don't have any alcohol at home. So I think I just had to embrace what the elements had for me today and try to make the best out of it. I was like, maybe I can make something cool out of it. Maybe I can actually learn how to paint through it. And it just requires a bit more patience, but I'm definitely sure that it is possible. We just have to know that the way we are used to the medium to respond is not going to respond that way, because it's a different kind of state. Like, it's solid now, or at least halfway there, and it used to be a liquid. I also just noticed that I was using a different brush today that usually doesn't carry that much water as my usual Versatile from Skoda. And I think that I'm not sure if that would have made a difference or not, but it is worth noting. Now I think I was trying to add even darker shadows, and the paint is just not giving away. It's just so frozen still, and I'm still trying to add some detail of the back rock. It's just so laughable that I'm just not giving up. Still going, still trying. Oh, it's a bit cringy for me to watch this now. But at the same time, I'm proud that I didn't give up at the sight of this problem. And if you have noticed, I am still sick. I am still under the weather. It just doesn't want to leave me. I'm not used to being sick for this long. I usually am sick once a year for like a day or two, and that's it. And now it's been almost a week, and I am so tired of being sick. It's just not very fun. One very interesting observation that we can take from today's mishap is that this actually resembles a lot a mistake from beginners when they're learning watercolor, that they don't use enough pigment, and then they also don't wait for their paint to dry or their previous layer to dry, and therefore it just looks like a complete mess. There is no contrast. It looks overworked, it looks blotchy. That's just because we don't use enough pigment, or we just don't wait for our previous layer to dry. That's something I touched on yesterday, a mistake that I was making. So I was trying to be better today, but the weather just didn't allow it. And well, that's fine, because that also serves as a proof that even people with experience in watercolor still can make the same mistakes. And I think that's something I'm loving about this challenge. I'm kind of going back to basics, even though I sometimes don't have to think about them when I'm painting indoors. But yeah, I think by this point I'm kind of giving up and thinking, yeah, that's not gonna get better. So I just stop there. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to sign the date and the number. And yeah, today's adventure was quite fun. I mean, even though it was quite cold and I'm sick and I'm out in the elements, it was still quite fun. But yeah, that was day number 2. I hope that you enjoyed this video and this little adventure, and I hope to see you tomorrow.